I'm building a blog for a demo application, and when I'm seeding my data, I want the articles in that blog to have some random HTML to make them look a little bit real at a glance. So, of course, I come over to Trusty or Faker, and I see it's got this random HTML function, and I feel like that's going to be absolutely perfect for what I need. But when I run this, I notice it's not quite what I want. You can see it's got the HTML and head and body tags here, but not only that, it also has things like forms, which I don't really want because I don't want inputs mid-article. So it doesn't look like this function is what I want. So I go away from this and I try and figure out how I could do it instead. And I end up on something like this, where I have a match statement and I pass through a list of random numbers between 1 and 10. On a 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's going to come back with one of these. On a 5 to 10, it's going to come back with just a paragraph, which is what most of an article should be. So I feel like that should happen most of the time. And if I run this now, I can see it comes back with exactly what I wanted. Here we're using the pre-code with the random HTML function inside to actually come back with some random HTML. If I run it a couple of other times, I get back other things. So it seems like it's doing exactly what I want. But what if I have something that's a little bit more complex than this? Well, I came across the Laravel value function, and I feel like it's really good at what it does. It's such a dumb little function, but it's so helpful. If you don't know what it does, we can come in and inspect it here. It's a single line. It takes a value as an argument. If that is a closure, it will invoke that closure and return the result of that. Otherwise, it'll just return the original value you pass through. So if I run this code here, we can see that on the first one, I'm passing through a string and it's returning the string. On the second one, I'm passing through a closure that returns a string, and I'm still just getting the string back. So it's really helpful for kind of dumb situations like that. And so I thought about how I could use that, and this is what I basically ended up on. I ended up wrapping that match statement in a value function, cool, and then added a couple of extra rules. So all of my basic rules are still returning strings like they would be, but I got two rules here that are actually closures and they are returning strings themselves. And this one we could maybe fit onto one line if we wanted to, but this one looks a little bit too complex to fit nicely onto one line. Now this one's making like a random either UL or OL, an unordered or ordered list element. Sometimes that has prefixes on front, a couple of words that are in bold. It's just a couple of little things. It's not super complex, but it's just something that makes an article look a little bit more real if you've got a couple of lists in there. So if I start to run this code, you can see I'm getting back the strings just as I might expect. But if I keep running it until I get one like here, now it's returning this image tag from here, and I'm not getting the closure back from here because we're running through the value function. It's returning the string that this closure gets. And that's super, super powerful because now I can use match statements for all of their glory and how great they are. And I can have most of my rules be single lines and not have to worry about making them really complex or swapping out to switch statements or if-else statements. But for those odd cases where I do need to take a match statement and go a little bit wider and do maybe a couple more things, instead of switching the paradigm entirely, I can just wrap that in a closure and use that closure instead. And I think that's absolutely great. It's a wonderful way to work. The combination of the value function and the match statement, absolutely brilliant.